there any questions from the floor? Yes.
Did he do it?
Purposefully?
To a certain extent, yes. It's quite disillusioning in a way, but he absolutely wanted everybody to believe he didn't have a studio, that he painted everything outdoors. In the end, he said, forget, he was so, I mean, he's actually one of the first artists to have, celebrity journalists, interviewing him. I think he was, and one journalist visited him in, I think, 1879 or something, and he said, where's your studio? And he said, there's my studio, the whole Seine Valley. But we knew it wasn't the studio because he was crammed in the house with about 8 children and 2, wife and somebody, another family. There wasn't much room, but he had a place to do it. There's an art historian called John House, sort of did a lot of work on finding that, and I didn't like it because it was kind of, we're clever, we know about Monet, he was lying. Mm-hmm. But it was, for a long time, important for him to think that, for people to think when they saw the painting, this comes out of a direct relationship with nature and a direct exploration of his sensations of what he was seeing. And later on, he stopped saying he didn't have a studio because it wasn't tenable any longer. So it's disconcerting. But I think it's also important that the paintings were, I think I'm right in saying, always begun in front of the motif, and a large part of the painting was going. So when you took them back to the studio, it was to make them more like they were than they were anyway. You're going to put a golden thing under the arch of the thing because that's how it ought to be, maybe.
If I may, I think all artists do that anyway. I think all artists create a persona and stick to it because it's easier to sell.
Yes. And he had to sell. I mean, he's one of the very few avant-garde artists in the 19th century who didn't have any independent income. It's surprising how many of them did, because it was terrible if you didn't. But he acquired a reputation very fast.
And do you think that the idea of not having a studio and of course the whole concept of working in the open air, if you set that back in its time in terms of the training that an academic painter would have had, which was very much in the studio, working, I understand Goldie, when he went to Paris, he was in the studio, 1893 till 97, 98, a very thorough training and application towards drawing from life and painting from life and learning that finish, that uniform, meticulous finish, which is so different from the values of the Impressionists. I just wonder how much it would seem to Monet, quite genuine in a way, that he didn't have a studio, in the sense of the importance of the studio in terms of training and in terms of what it fostered, an authoritarian, a uniform way of working rather than that individual response.
Yeah, I mean the little one with willows, I mean he's sitting out at dawn on a river changing the canvases as the light changed. The beautiful mornings on the Seine, which is, just, isn't it, wonderful painting with the mist sort of rising up, and it's almost, the forms emerge, but it's actually the paint that's making them emerge. It's not nature.
I'm almost cringing as I'm about to say this. Oh, although, Terence, were you about to say something? Sorry?
No.
Oh, no.
But I could.
No. Oh, well, I'll continue to cringe then. just to observe that we are out of time now, and if we're not careful, people will start voting with their feet. But that's the whole point of Monet, I think, and the whole point of the exhibition, which I think the four speakers have brought home admirably. I like in particular, the idea of the democratizing influence of Monet. And one of the reasons why this rather awkward question was framed in the first place, inspired as it was by your mother's observation, does the world need another book on Monet, darling, is the uncertainty just at this moment in New Zealand's history and its New Zealand's cultural history about whether Monet has a place really in our art scene, our art world at this time. And it was very interesting to hear Julie talk about this now becoming part of New Zealand's art history from this point onwards, and it's be very interesting to see what will happen. But one thing is clear, is that the people are voting with their feet. And it's the people who love to look at the paintings and who are coming to see them in droves. And I think as long as there's that public interest in artists of the quality of Monet, then museums such as Te Papa should really strive to bring the very best of what the world has produced in the way of great art. So with that, I'd like, on your behalf, to thank our wonderful panellists this evening, Julie King, Emilie Sitzia, Virginia Spate and Terence Maloon, for their wonderful contributions this evening. And thank you all very much also for coming and supporting.